Looking for your next quick sewing project for some instant gratification? Let me show you how to sew these super cute bowl cozies. These are perfect. It is almost soup season. These are 100% made out of cotton, so they are microwavable and will protect your hands from getting too hot as you're enjoying your hot bowl of soup this winter. Or if you're not a soup gal and you like ice cream, protect your fingers from absolutely freezing off from that cold bowl of ice cream. Oh, and did I mention these make great gifts for people like coworkers, teachers, people who you just need something small, and handmade is always one of the best ways to go. Enough of my yapping, let's get started. This project is also fat quarter friendly. You can either use one fat quarter to make one bowl cozy or two fat quarters to make two with matching fabrics for the inside and the outside. Here I'm using Wrap and Zap batting. I'm cutting 10.5-inch squares. This is what makes it microwave safe. If you don't have Wrap and Zap, but you do have extra cotton batting laying around from projects like quilts, you can go ahead and cut that into two 10.5-inch squares, but I would maybe double or even triple up on that. I just stick with the Wrap and Zap because as I'm giving these away, I want to be sure that they are safe in the microwave. You will also need two 10.5-inch squares of cotton fabric. If you're using fat quarters, just be very careful because 10.5-inch squares will give us just enough lengthwise, since a fat quarter is usually around 21 to 22 inches, depending on if there's a big chunk of the selvage at the end. If you don't have quite enough for 10.5-inch squares, that's okay. Just go down to maybe like 10 inches. It'll still be fine and the project will still work out. I am going to be making two bowl cozies with my supplies here. So I use two fat quarters to cut out two 10.5-inch squares of my outer fabric, two 10.5-inch squares of my inside accent fabric, and two 10.5-inch squares of my Wrap and Zap. If you are just making one bowl cozy, you will just need one of each of these. And if you need to stock up on some extra Wrap and Zap, I do have it linked to my Amazon storefront. I have a whole list of all the materials I use in this video. Next, we are going to lay our outside fabric down on one piece of the Wrap and Zap. So I have one piece of cotton on my one piece of Wrap and Zap. I am going to mark diagonal lines going from both corners, making like an X shape. And then I'm also going to mark lines vertically and horizontally going halfway through the fabric as well. So if you're measuring, it should be 5.25 inch in. Here I'm using a Hera marker, but you could definitely just use a washable marker or a fabric pen. I love the Hera marker because I don't have to wash anything out after, and I really don't want to wash these bowl cozies if I don't have to. Next, we are going to take this to our sewing machine and sew along all of those lines you marked. So this is what it will look like after you sew it. I did use a 3.0 stitch length because it's a little more of a quilted look. Next, we have to cut some corners out so that we can make that nice bowl shape. I start by folding this in half and marking 1 inch in from the fold on the top and 2 inches down on the fold on the right side. You can use a ruler like I am here, or I discovered a better way shortly after this, that you can just line it up on your cutting mat and see 1 inch in and 2 inches down and do it that way. You will then cut out the fabric on the fold there. That is 2 inches down and 1 inch in. So here, this is how I did it when I lined it up with my cutting mat. I saw 1 inch, 2 inch, and went ahead and trimmed it off. Then we open it up and fold it the other way and repeat the same thing. So now you should have 4 of these cut out. These are called darts. And it should look like this. Now you want to go ahead and repeat the same process with your accent fabric or your lining fabric. This one is a little thinner because we are not having to quilt it to the Wrap and Zap. However, if you are using cotton quilt batting instead, I would probably quilt some of that cotton batting to this piece as well. Once we have all of these darts cut out, we are going to go ahead and sew 1/4 inch from the edge of just the dart. So if you fold your pieces back in half again, you are just going to sew right along that cut line 1/4 inch from the raw edge on all 4 of those. And it should look like this after you have done that. I do back stitch in the beginning and the end of that stitch there. So here I'm folding my lining fabric in half, and again we are just sewing 1/4 inch from that raw edge where we cut, and you should have 2 of these bowl shapes once you're done doing all 8 of those. Then we are going to put the lining fabric inside of the outer piece. Right sides of the fabric should be facing each other and wrong sides of the fabric facing outward. So it should look kind of like inside out. Then I line up all of my corners and all of my seams and clip them together. Now we are going to sew around almost the entire edge, 1/4 inch from that raw edge, but leave one of the edges open. Do not sew it shut. So from one of the darts to one of the corners, I do leave open, and I sew off the edge on the last corner that I do. Leave this piece mostly open so that we can turn it right side out. I do trim up my corners first so that we get rid of a little bit of that bulk so it's easier to turn and have those corners pointed out. And then I find that opening again and start turning it right side out. Be careful not to tug on this too much when you're turning it because you don't want to rip out any of your quilted stitches. Once you have it turned out, you will then want to find your opening, fold it inward about 1/4 inch, clip it, and then we are going to just top stitch around the entire edge, about 1/8 inch from the edge. And that is it. You have a finished bowl cozy. These come together so quickly. Make sure you give me a follow. I'm going to be sharing one easy sewing project you can use as gifts every Saturday from now until Christmas.